The stadium roared with life, a living, breathing entity fueled by the electric energy of thousands. The night sky above was a canvas of stars, but the real constellations were on the ground, fans draped in glittering outfits, their faces painted with devotion, their voices rising in unison like a hymn. The stage, a monolithic structure of steel and light, towered at the center of it all, commanding attention. It was more than a concert, it was a pilgrimage, a shared moment of catharsis for everyone present. Yet, in the shadows, where the light didn't reach, something darker stirred. Jamal adjusted his headset, his eyes darting between the sea of monitors in the control room. Each screen captured a fragment of the night, the crowd, the stage, the exits. His job was to see what others didn't, to anticipate danger before it struck. Tonight felt different, though. The energy wasn't just electric, it was volatile. His gaze lingered on one screen, zooming in on a cluster of men near the barricades. Their movements were subtle but deliberate, their signs a stark contrast to the glittering euphoria around them. His instincts screamed at him, a low hum of unease that he couldn't shake. On stage, Taylor Swift exuded an almost otherworldly presence, her sequin gown catching the light like a second skin of stars. To the crowd, she was invincible, a beacon of hope and resilience. But Taylor felt the shift in the air, the way the cheers faltered, replaced by murmurs that rippled like a stone dropped into still water. Her eyes, sharp and searching, found the source, a cluster of hate, brazen and unyielding. For a split second, fear flickered in her chest, but it was quickly replaced by something stronger, resolve. The crowd's energy hung in the balance, teetering between celebration and chaos. Taylor stepped closer to the microphone, her voice steady but edged with steel. "We don't let hate win," she said, her words cutting through the tension like a blade. Behind her, the band stilled, their instruments silent, as if the universe itself held its breath. Jamal's finger hovered over the emergency button, his heart pounding in his chest. He didn't press it. Not yet. Something extraordinary was unfolding, a moment that would ripple far beyond the stadium walls. Taylor wasn't just standing her ground, she was reclaiming it, turning the spotlight into a weapon. The story unfolds in the sprawling, labyrinthine city of Iridian, a metropolis suspended above an endless ocean of swirling mist. The city is divided into tiers, with the affluent and powerful residing in the sunlit upper spires, while the impoverished masses struggle to survive in the shadowy depths below. Iridian is a place of stark contrasts, where ancient, crumbling architecture meets cutting-edge technology powered by a mysterious energy source called Lumina. The mist beneath the city is said to harbor creatures of legend, though few dare to descend and confirm the rumors. The protagonist, Kale Veyron, is a cunning scavenger from the depths who survives by retrieving discarded technology from the upper spires. Kale's wiry frame and quick reflexes make him adept at navigating the treacherous underbelly of Iridian, but his piercing green eyes hold a quiet determination born from years of hardship. Haunted by the disappearance of his sister, Kale's every move is driven by the hope of uncovering her fate. His closest ally is Arden, a former Lumina engineer with a prosthetic arm powered by the very energy she once helped harness. Arden, pragmatic and fiercely intelligent, harbors a deep guilt over the corruption within the system she once served. The antagonist, Lord Darion Valtiz, rules the upper spires with an iron fist. Charismatic yet ruthless, he seeks to monopolize the Lumina supply, believing it holds the key to immortality. His motivations are entwined with his tragic past, having lost his family to a failed experiment involving the energy source. Kale's path crosses with Darion's when he discovers a device that could destabilize the Lumina network, threatening the city's fragile balance. As Kale and Arden navigate Iridian's intricate web of secrets, their bond deepens, forged by shared pain and a growing sense of purpose. Yet, looming over them is the question of whether they can challenge a system built to crush dissent, or if they too will be consumed by the city's shadows. The crowd gasped as Taylor, guitar in hand, stepped forward, her voice steady yet sharp as she addressed the hateful signs. "Not here. Not tonight." Her words reverberated through the stadium, a challenge, a shield. Backstage, Jamal's finger lifted from the button, his chest tight with pride. The men froze, their venomous intent unraveling under the weight of thousands rallying behind her. The small coastal town of Havenport, nestled between rugged cliffs and the restless sea, was home to an unlikely trio: Nora, a fiercely independent marine biologist; Elias, a reserved yet ambitious journalist; and Clara, a free-spirited artist with a penchant for uncovering local mysteries. Each carried a unique goal that, unbeknownst to them, would soon intertwine. Nora sought to protect the fragile marine ecosystem threatened by an impending corporate development. Elias aimed to expose corruption within the company funding the project, hoping to make his mark as a serious investigative journalist. Clara, drawn to whispers of a centuries-old shipwreck tied to the development site, yearned to uncover a forgotten piece of history. Their paths crossed at a heated town hall meeting, where tempers flared over the proposed construction. Nora's impassioned plea for environmental preservation clashed with Elias's probing questions about the project's legitimacy. Clara, meanwhile, quietly sketched the scene, her curiosity piqued by the tension. Despite their initial friction, the trio found themselves reluctantly allied when they discovered a mutual adversary, the enigmatic CEO of the development company, Victor Langston, whose charm masked a darker agenda. Their first obstacle emerged when Victor's team began silencing dissenters through intimidation and legal threats. Nora's research lab was vandalized, Elias's editor pressured him to drop the story, and Clara received a cryptic warning to stay away from the shipwreck site. These challenges forced them to confront their own vulnerabilities and question their commitment to their goals. As they worked together, their dynamics began to shift. Nora's guarded demeanor softened as she saw Elias's determination to uncover the truth. Clara's seemingly whimsical nature revealed a sharp intellect, earning the other's respect. Subplots emerged as Clara uncovered clues about the shipwreck's connection to a lost treasure, and Elias stumbled upon evidence of Victor's ties to a larger conspiracy. Their alliance deepened, setting the stage for a battle that would test their resolve and reshape their lives. The morning began like any other in the quiet town of Willow Creek, with its cobblestone streets bathed in the soft glow of dawn. The townsfolk went about their routines, shopkeepers opened their stores, children hurried to school, and the faint aroma of freshly baked bread wafted through the air. For Clara, a librarian with a penchant for predictability, it was just another day cataloging books and sipping her favorite chamomile tea. But by noon, the fragile rhythm of her world would be irrevocably shattered. A deafening crash echoed through the town square, followed by a plume of black smoke rising against the blue sky. Clara, along with a growing crowd of onlookers, rushed toward the commotion. What they found was nothing short of chaos. A delivery truck had careened into the town's prized clock tower, leaving it teetering precariously. The driver, pale and trembling, muttered incoherently about losing control after being blinded by a sudden, inexplicable flash of light. Yet, it wasn't the accident itself that sent a ripple of unease through the crowd, it was what lay scattered across the cobblestones. Among the debris were strange metallic fragments, unlike anything anyone had seen before. Jagged and glinting unnaturally in the sunlight, the pieces seemed to hum faintly, as if alive. Clara felt an inexplicable pull toward one shard near her feet. The moment her fingers brushed its surface, a jolt of energy surged through her, and for a split second, her vision blurred into a cascade of incomprehensible symbols. As whispers spread and fear took hold, the mayor announced an immediate investigation. Clara, however, couldn't shake the feeling that this was no ordinary accident. The fragment she touched had left a faint, glowing mark on her palm, a mark that pulsed in time with her heartbeat. Something had changed, and she knew she couldn't ignore it. Unwillingly thrust into the unknown, Clara realized her quiet life was over. The tension in the stadium was palpable, the air heavy with a mix of anticipation and unease. Near the barricades, a young woman named Elena clutched her camera tightly. An aspiring journalist, she had spent months saving for this moment, eager to document the final night of Taylor Swift's tour. But her focus shifted as she noticed the men with the hateful signs. Her hands trembled, not from excitement but from anger. She debated whether to capture the scene or intervene, her journalistic instincts clashing with her personal convictions. Meanwhile, high above the stage, a crew member named Luis adjusted the rigging for the next set piece. He had worked on dozens of concerts, but tonight felt different. He could see the disruption below, the hateful signs like dark smudges on a vibrant canvas. Luis glanced at his walkie-talkie, wondering if he should alert Jamal. Yet something told him to wait, to watch how Taylor would handle the situation. Backstage, Taylor's manager, Claire, paced nervously. She had been with Taylor through countless controversies, each one a battle that left scars. "Jamal," she hissed into her headset, "do we need to pull her off stage?" Her voice betrayed a rare crack in her usually unshakable composure. Jamal didn't respond immediately, his eyes glued to the monitor. "Not yet," he finally said, his voice steady but tinged with tension. In the crowd, a teenage fan named Mia, wearing a homemade Fearless Forever shirt, noticed a shift in energy. She had idolized Taylor for years, finding solace in her music during her parents' divorce. Now, seeing the hateful signs, Mia felt a surge of protectiveness. She began chanting, her voice small at first but growing louder, rallying those around her. "We love you, Taylor." The chant spread like wildfire, a wave of support drowning out the negativity. On stage, Taylor stepped forward, her voice steady as she addressed the crowd. "We don't let hate win here," she said, her words cutting through the tension like a blade. The audience erupted in cheers, their unity a defiant response to the darkness that had tried to infiltrate their sanctuary. The murmurs in the crowd grew louder, a ripple of unease spreading outward as fans began to notice the signs. Security personnel moved discreetly through the throng, their earpieces buzzing with Jamal's clipped orders. The tension was palpable, a storm brewing beneath the glittering facade of the concert. Taylor's voice, when she finally spoke, was steady but carried an edge. "I see you," she said, her words slicing through the silence. "And I see the people standing next to you who are better than this." In the VIP section, Olivia, Taylor's childhood friend and confidant, clenched her fists. She had been dragged into the spotlight against her will after Taylor's rise to fame, her private life dissected by tabloids eager to exploit their connection. Now, watching her friend face down the hate, Olivia felt a surge of guilt. She had urged Taylor to avoid addressing the controversy, to let it pass. But seeing the defiance in Taylor's stance, she realized her friend had chosen a different path, a braver one. Meanwhile, in the control room, Jamal's focus shifted as a new alert flashed on the screen. A suspicious figure had been spotted near one of the emergency exits, their movements erratic. He barked orders into his radio, sending a team to investigate. The concert was no longer just a performance, it was a battlefield, and Jamal was determined to protect everyone in the arena. The stakes had risen, the threat now tangible and immediate. On stage, Taylor strummed her guitar, the first notes of a song she hadn't performed in years. It was an anthem of resilience, a rallying cry for those who refused to be silenced. The crowd erupted, their cheers drowning out the jeers. The hateful signs were torn down by fans, their fragments trampled underfoot. The men who held them were escorted out, their faces a mix of anger and humiliation. Backstage, Olivia made a decision. She would speak out, not just for Taylor but for herself. She had stayed silent too long, afraid of the backlash, the judgment. But watching her friend stand tall, she realized that fear could no longer dictate her choices. As the song reached its crescendo, Olivia stepped out of the shadows, ready to face the world alongside Taylor. In the control room, Jamal exhaled, his hand finally moving away from the emergency button. The immediate danger had passed, but the night was far from over. The arena, once a place of celebration, had become a crucible, testing the resolve of everyone within it. And as Taylor's voice soared, defiant and unyielding, it was clear that this was more than a concert, it was a stand, a moment that would ripple far beyond the stadium walls. The crowd's silence was electric, a vacuum that seemed to amplify the tension. Taylor's fingers hovered over the strings of her guitar, her gaze locked on the men with the signs. The moment stretched, her vulnerability laid bare before thousands. But then, as if drawing strength from the very air around her, she straightened her posture. Her voice, steady and clear, broke through the quiet. "I've always believed music has the power to unite," she said, her words carrying both a plea and a challenge. Tonight, let's drown out the hate with love. A murmur rippled through the audience, hesitant at first, then growing. Someone near the back shouted, "We love you, Taylor." Cheers erupted, cascading in waves across the stadium. The hateful signs were momentarily eclipsed by a sea of fans raising their illuminated phones in solidarity. Taylor strummed her guitar, the opening chords of a song she hadn't performed in years, a ballad about resilience and courage, filling the air. Her voice, raw and unguarded, carried a weight that transcended melody. Jamal's eyes remained glued to the monitor, his hand finally lowering from the emergency button. Relief mingled with awe as he watched the crowd rally behind her. Yet, his instincts kept him alert. He signaled his team to close in on the men with the signs, their presence a festering wound in an otherwise healing moment. Security moved swiftly, their shadows darting through the crowd, unnoticed by most. As Taylor sang, tears glimmered in her eyes, though her voice never wavered. The audience sang with her, their voices merging into a powerful chorus. It was no longer just a concert, it was a declaration, a stand against the darkness that sought to overshadow the light. The men were escorted out, their hateful messages discarded and forgotten amidst the sea of unity. Backstage, Jamal exhaled deeply, his respect for Taylor deepened. She had turned a moment of potential chaos into something transformative. On stage, as the final chords faded, Taylor gazed out at the crowd, her heart full yet heavy. She knew the fight wasn't over, but tonight, they had won a battle. The crowd's tension was palpable, a fragile thread stretched to its limit. Taylor's gaze lingered on the signs, her jaw tightening as the hateful words burned into her mind. She stepped back from the microphone, her sequin gown catching the light, refracting it into 1,000 defiant sparks. The audience, sensing the shift, began to murmur, their voices a low hum of uncertainty. Near the back, a young girl clutching a homemade sign that read *, "We love you, Taylor." Backstage, Jamal's radio crackled to life. "Do we intervene?" Jamal hesitated, his instincts warring with his trust in Taylor. "Hold," he replied, his voice low but firm. He'd seen her handle storms before, but this felt different. The stakes were higher, the malice sharper. Yet, there was something in her stance, a quiet resolve that made him pause. On the far side of the stage, Megan, Taylor's longtime publicist, exchanged a tense glance with Sarah, the tour manager. "This could spiral," Megan muttered, her fingers tapping anxiously on her clipboard. Sarah nodded but said nothing, her eyes fixed on Taylor. Both women knew the risks of inaction, but they also knew Taylor's tendency to rise in moments like these. It was a gamble, but one they'd taken before. Taylor stepped forward, her fingers strumming a single, resonant chord that cut through the murmurs like a blade. The sound hung in the air, commanding attention. "I see you," she said, her voice steady, carrying over the crowd. The words weren't loud, but they were powerful, a declaration that sent a ripple through the sea of faces. The men with the signs shifted uncomfortably, their bravado faltering under the weight of her gaze. In the control room, Jamal exhaled, his hand dropping from the button. "She's got this," he murmured, more to himself than anyone else. But even as the tension began to ease, a shadow moved at the edge of the crowd, unnoticed by most. Jamal's sharp eyes caught it, and his stomach tightened. Something wasn't right. Taylor launched into a song, her voice clear and unwavering, a melody of resilience and unity. The crowd, emboldened by her strength, began to sing along, drowning out the remnants of hate. Yet, backstage, Megan's phone buzzed with an urgent message. She glanced at the screen, her face paling. "Jamal," she whispered, her voice trembling. "We might have a bigger problem." The stadium's energy wavered, the once deafening cheers now replaced by murmurs of confusion and unease. Taylor's fingers hovered over her guitar strings, her pulse quickening. She could feel the weight of thousands of eyes on her, waiting, questioning. The hateful signs loomed in her periphery, a stark reminder of the risks she had taken by speaking her truth. Her heart pounded, but she refused to let fear dictate her next move. She had faced storms before, this was no different. Backstage, Jamal's radio crackled with updates from his team. "They're not just holding signs," a voice buzzed. "They're trying to rile up the crowd." Jamal's jaw tightened. He scanned the monitors, his trained eyes catching subtle movements in the group. They weren't just here to disrupt, they were calculating, waiting for the perfect moment to escalate. His hand hovered over the emergency button again, but he hesitated. He needed to be sure. One wrong move could send the entire stadium into chaos. Meanwhile, in the crowd, a young girl named Mia clutched her homemade poster, her hands trembling. She had saved for months to attend this concert, her first ever. Taylor's music had been her lifeline during her parents' divorce, her anchor in a turbulent sea. Seeing the hateful signs felt like a personal attack, a stain on what was supposed to be the happiest night of her life. But as she looked up at Taylor, standing resolute on stage, something shifted inside her. If Taylor could face this, so could she. Taylor stepped closer to the microphone, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. "I see you," she said, her words cutting through the tension like a blade. "And I see all of you who are here tonight to spread love, not hate." The crowd erupted into cheers, drowning out the jeers from the group at the front. For a moment, the stadium felt united, a collective force of resilience. Jamal exhaled sharply, his hand finally lowering from the button. He signaled his team to move in quietly, to neutralize the group before they could escalate further. His focus remained sharp, but a flicker of pride crossed his face as he watched Taylor reclaim the moment. She wasn't just a performer, she was a leader. As the band struck the opening chords of her next song, Taylor's voice soared, stronger than ever. The hateful signs were overshadowed by a sea of glowing phones and voices singing in unison. In that moment, the stadium wasn't just a venue, it was a battleground for hope, and Taylor had just won the first round. Taylor's fingers hovered over the strings of her guitar as she stepped closer to the edge of the stage, her voice steady yet resolute. "I see you," she said, her words cutting through the tense silence like a blade. The crowd, thousands strong, held their collective breath. "You came here tonight to spread hate, but let me tell you something, this stage, this space, belongs to love, to unity, to every single person who believes in kindness and equality." Her words ignited a wave of applause, a roaring tide of support that drowned out the hateful murmurs. The men with the signs faltered, their bravado shrinking under the sheer force of the crowd's energy. Backstage, Jamal exhaled deeply, his hand falling away from the emergency button. He watched as the camera zoomed in on Taylor's face, her expression a mix of vulnerability and unshakable resolve. He knew she had just turned what could have been a moment of chaos into a defining stand. His years of experience in security had taught him to anticipate the worst, but tonight, Taylor had shown him the power of confronting darkness with light. On stage, Taylor began to strum her guitar, the opening chords of change reverberating through the stadium. The audience joined in, their voices swelling in unison, a collective act of defiance against the negativity that had tried to infiltrate their sanctuary. The men, now visibly uncomfortable, lowered their signs and began to retreat, their presence erased by the overwhelming spirit of unity that filled the air. Taylor's voice soared, carrying a message that transcended the music, a call to action for her fans to stand tall, to speak out, to be fearless in the face of injustice. As the final notes faded, Taylor looked out over the sea of faces, her own alight with gratitude and determination. "Let's keep fighting for what's right," she said, her voice clear and unwavering. The crowd erupted, their cheers a promise to carry her message beyond the stadium walls. The stadium, once teetering on the edge of chaos, found itself held captive by Taylor's unwavering presence. She stepped forward, her voice steady, her words deliberate. "We are stronger than hate," she said, her tone resonating like a bell cutting through the darkness. The crowd erupted into applause, drowning out the venomous jeers. The men with the signs stood frozen, their hateful display rendered powerless in the face of such collective unity. Taylor strummed her guitar, her voice rising in a song that spoke of resilience, love, and the power of standing together. It was a moment that transcended music, a declaration of courage in the face of adversity. Backstage, Jamal exhaled deeply, his hand moving away from the emergency button. He watched the monitors as the energy in the crowd shifted, the sea of fans rallying behind their idol. It was a reminder of why he did this job, why he endured the sleepless nights and the constant vigilance. Taylor wasn't just a performer, she was a beacon for those who felt unseen, unheard. In that moment, she had turned a potential disaster into an unforgettable act of defiance and hope. As the concert drew to a close, Taylor addressed the crowd one last time. "This tour has been about connection," she said, her voice tinged with emotion. "About finding strength in each other, even when the world tries to divide us. Let's carry that with us, tonight, tomorrow, always." Her words hung in the air, a call to action that resonated far beyond the stadium walls. The audience roared their agreement, their cheers a promise to uphold the values she championed. In the days that followed, the incident became a symbol of resilience. The hateful signs were forgotten, overshadowed by the overwhelming display of unity. Taylor, though exhausted, felt a renewed sense of purpose. Jamal, too, found himself reflecting on the night, vowing to continue protecting the light in a world often consumed by shadows. And for the fans, the memory of that night became a touchstone, a reminder that even in the face of darkness, a single voice can spark a revolution of love.